In today's video, we're going to be discussing if co-buying a home is a good option for you if you desire to be a homeowner. And I won't be speaking on this in the traditional way of two spouses buying a home, but more in the non-conventional way where you may have a parent that wants to help a child, or you may want to buy a home with a family member or relative, or maybe some really good friends. Now, many home buyers are feeling the stress of this real estate market, and they feel like the only way they can get into a home is maybe buying a home with another person or a group of people. Because we have high prices of homes, it's making it very unaffordable for many home buyers. And the median sales price of a home here in America is around $450,000. So can you imagine if you are trying to buy a home as a single person or all alone? It can make it really challenging for you. Also, we have higher interest rates that have come down a little bit in the last couple of weeks, but they still are on the higher side. And last, we have job wages that just aren't paying enough, and we're not able to keep up with inflation. So many home buyers are feeling like co-buying a home is really the only option for them in order to attain the dream of home ownership. So in today's video, we're going to talk about the pros and cons of co-buying a home. What are some things that you need to look out for? And I'm going to give you some tips if you decide to co-buy a home with others. My name is Sherilyn Williams, and I'm your local Chicagoland realtor, and I'm also a licensed realtor in the state of Indiana. And I love providing videos that help give home buyers education in order to attain their dreams of home ownership. And if you need any help with your real estate needs here in the Chicagoland area, I would love to connect with you. Also, if you could please like and subscribe to my channel, not only does it support me, but it helps this information get out to other home buyers. Thank you. So let's get into how does co-owning a home work. The great benefit about co-owning a home is that it can help you with expenses. So if you decide to buy a home with another person or with a parent, you can split all the costs equally, or you can divide it by how many people are co-buying the home together. It's great to have someone help you with the down payment, the closing costs, the property taxes, the insurance, all of the utilities, and the upkeep of the home. But there are two main types of ownership that I want you to be aware of, and it's very important that you speak to a real estate attorney to advise you. Now, the two main types of ownership are joint tenancy and tenancy in common. I'm going to give you a very general explanation, but like I said, please speak with a real estate attorney. With joint tenancy, each person has equal ownership in the property. So if you purchase a property with 4 people, each person would have 25% ownership in the property. If one person decides to sell their share, they do not have to have consent or the approval of the remaining co-owners. Also, if one of the co-owners passes away, their share is split amongst the other co-owners. The next type of ownership is tenancy in common. With tenancy in common, each person does not have to have equal shares. So if you're buying a home with 3 people, one person may have 80%, and let's say the other 2 people have 10%. Now, the person with the greater percentage has more ownership in the property. So in this case, it would be the person with the 80% interest. But each person has the right to occupy the property. Now, if one person wants to sell their share, they do have to get the consent and the approval of the remaining co-owners. And if one person were to pass away, they do not have to give their share or ownership to the other occupants, but they can actually have their share in a will, or they may give it to a beneficiary. So these are the two main types of ownership. And like I said, it's important that you speak to a real estate attorney for more details. Now, with these types of ownerships, you can have a non-occupant borrower. And this is a person like a parent who wants to help a child, but they don't plan to live on the property or the premises. But they still will be on the mortgage, and they will be on the title, and will be responsible for the mortgage payments. Now, these types of ownerships each have certain duties and responsibilities, and they can vary from state to state. So be sure to speak with your attorney to make sure you find out the best option in ownership for you. When one or more people are applying for a home mortgage, they will become joint co-borrowers, and each person will be responsible for that loan. Now, when a lender is trying to qualify you for a mortgage, that lender is going to look at each co-borrower's incomes, their assets, their debt to income ratios, and the lender is going to check their credit scores. Having multiple incomes is definitely going to help you qualify for more of a home and get the best possible loan terms. And if you have a co-borrower that has a very good credit score and another co-borrower that does not have a great credit score, that co-borrower with a good credit score can really help that other co-borrower qualify and get into a home. But just be aware that the interest rate that you will receive will be based on the lower credit score of the borrower. So now let's get into the pros and cons of co-buying a home. First, the pros. Pro number one, it lets you get into home ownership. If you were trying to qualify and get approved for a home loan on your own and it was very difficult, if you have a co-borrower, that can definitely help you qualify for a home. The second pro is that it helps you lower expenses. It's great to have someone to help you come up with the upfront costs in buying a home, like your down payment and closing costs, but you also are able to split your mortgage payments, your utilities, and all the other maintenance and upkeep that you have for a home. The third pro is that you are building equity when you are a homeowner. As soon as you buy a home, usually your home will appreciate throughout the years. It doesn't matter if the real estate market has its highs and lows. In real estate, home prices and values tend to go up over time, which increases your net worth and the value of your home. The fourth pro is that it helps you to qualify for a home loan. Although lenders look at the lower credit score when they determine your eligibility and what your interest rate will be for a home loan, you can qualify for more home if there are multiple co-buyers for a home. Now let's talk about the cons of co-buying a home. Con number one is that it is a shared liability and debt. So everyone is going into the home with the responsibility of making the payments and making them on time. And if one person is not able to keep up their share and not pay the mortgage payment, the other people have to pick up the slack in order to avoid that loan being defaulted on or going into foreclosure. And this can also potentially hurt your credit score. And this can also work inversely, where if you have everyone that's making the payments on time, it can increase everyone's credit score. Con number two is that initially the lender is going to have to pull everyone's credit, and this can temporarily cause a dip in everyone's credit score because this is considered a hard inquiry. The third con is that eligibility is based on the lower middle credit score. So the lender is going to review your credit score on the three main credit bureaus, which is Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion, and they're going to take the lower middle score of each applicant. And that is how they're going to base what you can qualify for, what the home price will be, what your interest rate will be, and your loan terms. So if one co-borrower does not have the best credit score right now, it may be best to wait to co-buy a home and get your credit score up first. And the fourth con that many of you already know is that there can be a risk in relationships. And that's because if someone is not able to keep up with the mortgage payments, that can make everyone else angry when they have to pick up the slack, or maybe a co-buyer may decide they may just leave the house altogether, and then you will be responsible for their share as well as your share. And this can make people very upset and cause rifts in relationships and people not talking to each other. So this is definitely something that you want to think about beforehand. So if you do decide to co-own a home with someone else, you want to be sure that you all have good communication and you pick someone that you trust before you decide to co-buy a home. So here are some tips if you decide to co-buy a home with others. Tip number one is you want to buy a home that you can afford. Just because you can qualify for more home because you have multiple incomes and credit scores does not mean that you have to purchase a home on your high side. Choose a home that everyone feels comfortable with the mortgage payments, and you also want to think about the utilities and the taxes and insurance, as well as if any of the co-borrowers have any other debts like car loans and student loans. Also, make sure that you have an emergency fund in case unexpected things come up, which is quite common when you are a homeowner. You may be in a situation where you have to replace a roof, or maybe you have termites and you have termites damage that needs to be fixed. My second tip is you need to decide who is going to cover what expenses. Some co-borrowers may decide that they're going to split all the expenses equally. But then there may be a co-borrower that makes more money and has a higher salary. So will that person pay more expenses for certain things? These are all things that you need to discuss before you go into co-buying a home together. My third tip is to devise a plan if a co-buyer wants to sell, and make sure that you have this in writing. How will you prepare if one of the co-borrowers wants to move and now you have to pick up the slack in their side of their part of the mortgage? If this co-borrower decides to move away, are you going to try and buy them out, or will you have to sell the property? These are conversations that you definitely need to have. And my third tip is you want to plan for financial emergencies. What if one of the co-borrowers has a job loss and they're not able to make the payments anymore? They refuse to make the payments. Your credit score could take a hit and you may lose the house into foreclosure. So work out the details and talk beforehand before you go into this big endeavor. So in concluding, co-buying a home can be a great option for you if you really desire to be a homeowner, but please assess the risks before you make such a big decision. Thank you for watching. Smoking on